$300. That's what most independent artists earn after 1 million streams on Spotify. 1 million plays. You'd think a million of anything would make you rich, right? But here's the truth that the music industry doesn't want you to understand. Streaming platforms are paying artists roughly $0.003 per stream. That's 0.3 of 1 penny per play. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, artists should just get more streams. But here's what makes this absolutely infuriating. The system isn't just paying pennies. It's designed to ensure that money never reaches the artist in the first place. I'm going to show you exactly how streaming platforms, record labels, and a network of middlemen have created the most sophisticated wealth extraction system in entertainment history. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why your favorite artist is probably broke, even if they have millions of monthly listeners. But first, you need to know something the industry buried in 2016, and it changes everything. Quick note, this is educational content, not financial advice. Always consult professionals for your specific situation. Let's start with what actually happens when you hit play. While you're listening, here's the math most artists wish they'd known before signing their first deal. Picture this. You're an independent artist. You've spent months, maybe years, writing songs, recording in your bedroom studio, perfecting your sound. Finally, you release your first single. It goes viral on TikTok. Suddenly, you've got 5 million streams in the first month. Your friends are congratulating you. Your family thinks you've made it. You're checking your bank account every day, waiting for that big payday. And then, it hits. $15,000. 5 million streams. $15,000. That's it. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, 15 grand isn't bad for one song. And you're right, if you get to keep it. But here's where the system shows its teeth. That 15,000, it doesn't go to you, not directly. It goes to your distributor first. They take their cut, usually 15 to 20%. So now you're down to about $12,500. Then there's the producer who made your beat. You probably promised them 20% of streaming revenue. There goes another 2.5 grand. Down to 10,000. Did you collaborate with another artist? They want their split. Another 2,000 gone. You're at 8,000 now. And we haven't even talked about the most brutal part yet. See, most new artists don't understand how the streaming payment structure actually works. They think the money goes. Spotify collects subscription fees. Spotify pays artists. Simple, right? Wrong. The payment system is deliberately complex. Here's what everyone thinks happens. You stream a song. The artist gets paid. End of story. But here's what actually happens. When you pay your $10.99 monthly Spotify subscription, that money goes into a massive pool. Spotify takes 30% right off the top for operating costs and profit. That leaves about $7.70. Now, that remaining money doesn't get divided equally among all artists. Instead, it's divided based on total stream share. And this is where the math becomes absolutely predatory. Let's say there are 1 billion streams total in a given month. If your song got 1 million streams, you got 0.1% of total streams. So you get 0.1% of that revenue pool. Sounds fair? It's not. Because those billion streams include Bad Bunny, Taylor Swift, Drake, artists with tens of millions of streams. Your million streams? You're competing with them for the same limited pool of money. Avatar 1, Building to Revelation. But wait, it gets worse. Because that payment doesn't even go to you. It goes to your rights holder. And this is where most artists get absolutely destroyed. If you're signed to a label, even an indie label, they own your master recordings. That means they're the rights holder. The streaming payment goes to them, and then they pay you based on your contract. And what does the average record deal look like? Artists typically get 10 to 20% of streaming revenue. 10 to 20%. The label keeps the rest. Let that sink in. So let's do the math again. 5 million streams generates about $15,000 in revenue. Your distributor takes $3,000, your producer takes $2,000, your collaborator takes $2,000. That's $8,000 left. Then your label takes their 80% cut of what remains, $6,400. You, the artist who created the song, who spent years developing your craft, who built the audience, you get $1,600 for 5 million streams. And here's what makes this particularly cruel. Most artists don't even get that money right away. Labels have something called recoupment clauses. You know that advance they gave you to record the album? That $5,000 or $10,000 that felt like a blessing? You have to pay that back from your streaming revenue before you see a single penny. So you could have 10 million, 20 million, 50 million streams and still be earning exactly $0 until you've recouped your advance. Now, some of you are thinking, well, don't sign a bad deal, go independent. And that's great advice if you know what you're doing. But the system is designed to make independence nearly impossible. Avatar 1. Here's what they don't tell you. Spotify has a tiered payout system. Major label artists, the ones with direct deals with Universal, Sony, Warner, they get paid more per stream than independent artists. Sometimes double, sometimes triple. The exact numbers are hidden in confidential contracts, but industry insiders have leaked documents showing that major labels negotiated higher per-stream rates in exchange for feeding Spotify their entire catalogs. So when Taylor Swift gets a stream, she's making 0.3 of a penny. When you, an independent artist, get a stream, you're making 0.1 cents, 1/10 of a penny, 1/3 of what she makes. The game is rigged from the start. But here's what the experts, the labels, the platforms won't tell you. There's a reason this system was designed this way. And it goes back to a secret deal made in 2016 that fundamentally changed how streaming revenue works. And once you understand that deal, everything about modern music suddenly makes sense. All right, let's break down exactly how this system works, because once you understand the mechanism, you'll see why it's nearly impossible for most artists to make a living from streaming. First, you need to understand the 3-tier payment structure. Tier 1, the platform. Tier 2, the rights holders. Tier 3, the creators. And between each tier, money disappears. Imagine you're Spotify. You've got 200 million paying subscribers, each paying roughly $11 per month. That's $2.2 billion monthly. With me so far? Now, Spotify doesn't give all that money to artists. They keep about 30% for operations, servers, employees, marketing, profit. That leaves about $1.5 billion for the music side. But here's the first trick. Spotify doesn't pay artists directly. They pay rights holders, which means record labels, publishing companies, and distributors. And they pay based on something called market share. Here's how market share works. Let's say in a given month, there are 10 billion total streams across all of Spotify. Your song gets 1 million streams. That means you have 0.01% of total market share. Spotify takes that $1.5 billion and multiplies it by your market share percentage. 1.5 billion times 0.01% equals $150,000. Sounds good, right? 1 million streams equals 150 grand? Not even close, because that money doesn't go to you, it goes to your rights holder. If you're independent and you own your masters, great, you get that money, minus distribution fees. But if you're signed to a label, they get that money. And then they apply your royalty rate. Let's talk about standard record contracts. A typical new artist deal gives you 12 to 15% of streaming revenue. Some generous deals go up to 20%. The label keeps the rest. So that $150,000 for 1 million streams, the label takes $127,000. You get $23,000. But wait, there's more. Because that's not what you actually receive. From your $23,000, the label deducts recoupable expenses. What are those? Everything they spent on you. Recording costs, marketing, music video production, radio promotion, tour support, even the free lunch at the label meeting. Let's say they spent $50,000 developing your project. You don't see a penny until you've earned back that 50 grand from your share of streaming revenue. So you'd need about 4 million streams before you even break even. And then, and only then, do you start earning actual money. Avatar 2. Introducing loophole. Now, here's where it gets really sophisticated. Major labels have something called breakage clauses in their Spotify contracts. Breakage is industry terminology for money that's earned but not paid out. It happens all the time. An artist dies, someone loses track of their catalog, rights ownership becomes unclear. That money sits in limbo. In traditional record deals, that breakage money used to disappear into label coffers. But in streaming, labels negotiated something even more clever. They get to keep all the breakage from their entire catalog, and it doesn't count against their payout caps. Translation: if any artist on their label isn't claiming their streaming revenue, maybe they don't know they're owed it, maybe they're dead, maybe they're in a contract dispute, the label keeps that money. And it doesn't reduce what Spotify pays them for their other artists. It's free money. Now let's talk about how Spotify manipulates the system on their end. Spotify has a feature called Discovery Mode. It's marketed as a way for artists to get more exposure. You opt in, and Spotify promotes your music in algorithmic playlists and radio features. Sounds great, right? More streams means more money. Except there's a catch. When you opt into Discovery Mode, Spotify pays you 30% less per stream. They call it a promotional rate. But think about what that actually means. You're accepting less money in hopes of getting more streams. And Spotify profits because they're paying out less while still charging users the same subscription fee. Where does that extra 30% go? It stays with Spotify. It's pure profit. Here's another mechanism most people don't understand: publishing rights versus master rights. Imagine a song is like a house. The master recording is the actual physical house, the building itself. The publishing rights are the architectural blueprints, the underlying composition and lyrics. In most countries, streaming royalties are split. 55% goes to master rights holders, 45% goes to publishing rights holders. In the US, it's even more skewed, about 70-30 in favor of masters. So when a label owns your masters, they're getting the lion's share of every stream. And if they also own your publishing, which many 360 deals demand, they're getting paid twice, from the same stream. They get 70% as the master owner and 45% as the publisher. Wait, that's more than 100%, you say? Exactly. The percentages come from different pools. Master royalties come from one bucket, publishing from another. Labels double dip. Artists get whatever's left. And here's the most cynical part. Streaming platforms actively discourage long-term listening. You know why songs are getting shorter? Why the average hit is now 2 minutes 30 seconds instead of 4 minutes? It's because platforms pay per stream, not per minute listened. A stream counts as a stream if someone listens for 30 seconds or more. So if you can hook a listener in 30 seconds, get them to play the whole 2-minute song, and then immediately queue up your next song, you just generated 2 streams in 4 minutes instead of 1 stream in 4 minutes. Double the payout, same amount of listening time. Artists aren't making music shorter because of TikTok attention spans. They're making music shorter because the streaming payment algorithm incentivizes quantity over quality. And this is just the surface. When you look at the actual contracts, the loopholes, the subsidiary payments, and the offshore accounting that major labels use, it gets even darker. Now here's where it gets even more disturbing. Because there's evidence that platforms are artificially inflating certain streams while suppressing others, and it's all in the name of maximizing profit while minimizing payouts. Let's talk about the evidence. Because everything I'm about to tell you is documented, leaked, or admitted under oath in court proceedings. In 2020, a class action lawsuit revealed something shocking. Spotify had been underpaying mechanical royalties to songwriters by tens of millions of dollars. The settlement? $30 million paid to the National Music Publishers Association. But here's what that lawsuit exposed. Spotify's internal documents showed they had known about the underpayment for years. They'd calculated that paying the penalties would be cheaper than fixing their payment system. They made a business decision to steal from artists because it was more profitable than paying them correctly. Let me give you a specific example. There's an artist, I'll call her Artist M to protect her identity, who had a song with 50 million streams on Spotify. 50 million. According to Spotify's publicly stated average payout of 0.3 to 0.4 cents per stream, she should have earned between $150,000 and $200,000. Her actual payout? $12,000. How is that possible? Because she was signed to an independent label that took 70% of streaming revenue. Then her distributor took 15%. Her producer had 20% of her share, and she had a $50,000 recoupment hanging over her contract. After all the deductions, she earned about $12,000 from 50 million streams. That's 0.024 cents per stream, 1/12 of what Spotify claims to pay. According to leaked documents from a 2019 licensing negotiation, major record labels negotiated minimum payout guarantees with Spotify. Universal Music Group secured a guarantee of $500 million annually, regardless of stream counts. Think about what that means. Spotify guaranteed the label $500 million, whether their artists got 5 billion streams or 50 billion streams. The label's payout is fixed. They're protected from market fluctuations. But independent artists? They're subject to the market share model. If total streams go up, but their percentage stays the same, their per-stream rate goes down. They bear all the risk. Labels bear none. And here's the kicker. Those guaranteed minimums come out of the same pool that pays independent artists. The labels are literally taking money that would otherwise go to independent musicians. But the most shocking part? There's evidence that platforms are creating fake streams to inflate their numbers while simultaneously devaluing real streams. I'll explain in just a moment, but first, you need to understand the Playola system. Playola is the streaming era's version of payola. In the 1950s, radio stations took bribes to play certain songs. It was eventually made illegal. But in streaming, it's perfectly legal. And it's called playlist pitching. Here's how it works. Labels pay playlist curators, either directly or through third-party promotional companies, to add their songs to popular playlists. A spot on a playlist with 1 million followers can generate hundreds of thousands of streams. And who owns the biggest playlists on Spotify? Spotify itself. Playlists like Today's Top Hits, Rap Caviar, Hot Country, these are curated by Spotify employees. In 2021, documents emerged showing that major labels were paying Spotify for playlist consideration. Not guaranteed placement, mind you, just consideration. The labels paid money, and coincidentally, their artists started appearing on major playlists. Independent artists can't afford these fees, so they don't get playlist placement, which means they don't get streams, which means they don't get paid. Now here's where it gets truly dystopian. In 2022, multiple industry analysts noticed something strange. Certain songs were generating massive streaming numbers, but nobody could actually find anyone who was listening to them. One particular case involved a wellness playlist with ambient music. It had 50 million streams in 3 months. But when researchers tracked down the artists, they found that the music was created by stock music companies, potentially even AI generated, and the artists didn't exist. Spotify was accused of creating fake artists with fake music to fill playlists, thereby keeping streaming revenue in-house instead of paying real artists. They denied it, but several investigations found evidence of at least 40 fake artist names linked to one production company. If platforms can create content and pay themselves for streams, why would they pay real artists more than the minimum required? Let's look at the timeline of how payments have changed over the past decade. In 2014, Spotify paid an average of 0.7 cents per stream. By 2018, it had dropped to 0.4 cents. By 2022, it was down to 0.3 cents. And in 2024, some independent artists reported rates as low as 0.1 cents. The per-stream rate has dropped by 85% in 10 years. And it's not because Spotify is making less money. Their revenue has tripled. It's because they've found ways to keep more of it. Here's another documented case. A mid-level artist, let's call him Artist J, had a viral hit in 2023. The song reached number 15 on Spotify's global top 50. It accumulated 120 million streams in 6 months. By all accounts, he should have earned between $350,000 and $400,000 from those streams. His actual earnings? $41,000. How? Because 70% went to his label, 20% went to his management, 10% went to his distributor, and by the time all the middlemen took their cuts, he got $41,000 from 120 million streams. 0.03 cents per stream, 1/10 the published rate. And this creates a vicious cycle. Artists who can't make money from streaming have to tour constantly to survive. But touring is expensive. Transport, lodging, crew, equipment. Small artists often lose money on tour. So they're forced to take sponsorship deals, sell merchandise, and chase brand partnerships just to stay afloat. The music itself has become a marketing tool for everything else. The streaming platforms have turned music into advertising for products. We've commodified art to the point where artists are advertisements for their own existence. And the people who created this system? They're getting richer while artists work second jobs to afford rent. So what does this mean for you? Whether you're an artist, a listener, or just someone who cares about culture, the implications go far beyond just music. Because this system isn't limited to Spotify, it's replicated across Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Tidal. Every platform uses similar models. And it's spreading to other industries. What happens when writers, filmmakers, and visual artists all face the same algorithmic exploitation? We're about to find out. Map showing which countries have highest/lowest per stream rates.